Hi paper crafters, this is Collette. Today I want to share with you how I like to use my die cutting machine to create great die cuts and emboss features on my cards. I'm going to be making this card here, and along the way I'm going to be giving you some really good tips and tricks that you can have in your repertoire of die cutting. Now, I guess the first thing that we need to do is to talk about die cutting machines. Now, I have a shop in Hervey Bay in Queensland, and I do like to use my products before I recommend them to my customers. Over the years, and I have been die cutting since the very first machine came on the market, I have used the Cuttlebug, the Big Shot, the Spellbinders, the Embosser, the Vagabond. I've used lots of these machines, and in my craft room I've got about 4 or 5 of them, and they're all good machines. But the one I grab now every time to do my die cutting is this little guy here, which is actually called the Go Cut and Emboss. This one here. It's relatively new on the market, and it's actually Australian, which is fantastic, and it's from a company called Couture Creations, which are based in Brisbane. Now, why do I choose this machine? Why do I grab this machine every time I want to do die cutting or embossing? Let me tell you. It's super sturdy. There's no wobbling or dancing on the table. You know what I mean if you have one of those machines. It is a really solid, stable base, and I like that very much. It's also really quite compact and quite light. Some of the machines can get a bit heavy and can get a bit cumbersome. It actually comes with your 6-inch platforms rather than your 12 or 24-inch platforms, which I like because, you know, I'd say 98% of the time I use the smaller platforms, and for those few occasions that I do want to use a longer die, I just move the die on the platform and that works just as well. It's not an expensive machine. But it is super reliable. It gives me every time the best cut and the best embossing out of all the machines. Some very intricate dies where I would have to pass 3-4 times. On this little guy, it does it in one time. I'm really pleased with the way it cuts and embosses. The other thing, it has a 3-year warranty, and all the parts, the gears, etc., are all metal. So you haven't got any of this plastic internal workings that are going to break on you. So a 3-year warranty, that means this company really thinks that this is a great machine, as do I. So this is the machine I'm going to be using today, and if you don't have a machine, I would recommend you give this good consideration. I really do recommend it to my customers, and those that have bought it have been very happy with it. So let's get started on our project. We're actually going to be using the Sea Breeze collection, and I'm just simply using the one sheet of paper which is called Adventurous from Couture Creations as well. Now what I have done is I have taken a 5-inch by 10-inch piece of card, scored it at 5 inches to form my card base, and I've covered the front of it in some of that Sea Breeze paper. What I now want to do is cut a window in the front. The die that I have chosen to use today is called the Square Magnolia frame, and this is from Ultimate Crafts. I've chosen this because we've got basic cuts and we've got intricate cuts. So to start off with my window, I'm going to be using these basic cuts. What I want to do is to cut a window in this card here. Now, in order for me to get that window nice and centered, the way that I do that is simply to draw a diagonal line from top to bottom. So I'm going from point to point, and I know I just want the window in the middle, so I'm just going to pencil mark in the middle, do another diagonal cut here, sorry, not cut, pencil line. So now I actually very clearly know where the center of my card is, and I can take my dies. So I'm going to be using 2 of the dies from that collection, and I'm making sure that the die is going face down, and I am going to position them. So I'm using the center here, and I'm positioning the lines that I've just done. Now what I want to do is just to secure that in place with a die cutting machine's best friend, washi tape. Always have this on hand, and I always keep mine stuck to the top of my machine because you can reuse it again and again. Taking the second little window frame and popping that down so that's nice and centered, and once again just securing that with a bit of washi tape. So that's now ready for me to start die cutting. So I'm going to grab my machine, this beautiful Go Cut and Emboss, and what I'm going to do is to start loading this up for cutting. So for cutting I'm going to need my A base, and I'm going to need my C plate, and I always teach my ladies C for cut, so that's a good way of remembering it. And you'll look at my C base and you'll see how well used it is all over. Get in the habit of not just cutting in the one place, and get in the habit of cutting on both sides. When it gets to this stage here, or even just before this, we'll give this a scrub with soapy water, and that gets rid of any papers that are trapped in here. But eventually you will need to buy a new one of these C plates to replace it. But just do as I do, cut all over, cut on both sides. So on top of my A plate will be my C for cut plate. Then I'm going to pop down my dies, and then I'm going to pop down my B plate on top. So the B plate sits on top, and then I'm just going to roll that through. Now all these plates come with this machine, and one of the other things I like about this machine is that it also comes with the metal shim, which we'll be using later. None of the other machines, as far as I know, actually come with that. And did I tell you the other thing that I really love about this machine? It comes with a lovely colourful step-by-step instruction booklet. I hate it nowadays when I buy some equipment and it doesn't come with instructions. This is really a useful thing to have. Okay, so that's now been cut. Now remember, I have actually cut card and paper with this pass, and I know it's going to come up really well. So this is your basic cutting. So I'm going to be taking off my washi tape. You can see that comes off nice and clearly. I'm going to stick that back on top of my machine for next time. And then I'm going to remove these two dies. And absolutely beautiful cut, even though it's through a card and paper stuck together. So I've got these beautifully cut. So that's my window in my card. And I'm going to be using this little guy later, and of course I'm going to rub away those pencil lines. And this little frame is a bonus. I can use this on another card. I could have a stamped sentiment in the middle. I could have a flower, but this isn't for now. So that goes in my stash for later. So that was a basic cut, and now what I want to do is to show you how to do an intricate cut. So I chose this die because it is super beautiful, and it's super intricate. There's so much detail on it. So I want to show you how beautifully the Go Cut and Emboss will actually tackle these intricate cuts. Now the sandwich for this one is a bit different. So what I need to do is to set up for cutting. So as always, my A plate goes down. And you'll notice that I layer things up on my A plate. I find that easier than doing it off the machine and then putting it on the machine, because things might move or slip. So the A plate is down, and because I'm cutting, I'm going to need my C plate. But I know that this is a super intricate die, so this is where I will insert my metal shim. So this is the metal shim that comes with this machine, and I'm going to put that underneath my C plate. And I'm going to pop that under there. So just as a reminder, that metal shim you use when it's an intricate cut. I didn't need it for that basic frame cut earlier. I definitely need it for this one. Okay, so now I have my paper, and that's going to go down next. Now there's one extra thing I want to put in place with this very intricate die, and that is some quick release paper. And this one here is by Couture Creations, and it's super cheap, and you get 2 big rolls in a box. It's a little bit like that waxed cooking paper, but it's not the same. It's much thinner and it's much more waxier. So I'm just going to cut enough off to use on my die. actually this particular paper, Couture Creations do some, but this is the one from Ultimate Crafts. But both are exactly the same, but with a different design on. So I'm going to have the design up, and I'm placing that down, and you'll notice the great thing is that the paper is the same width as the mouth of the machine, and the mouth of the Go Cutting and Emboss is great. It takes all, you know, the standard dies and embossing folders that are on the market, so that's great too. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to place my die down. Now you'll notice I've done things a little bit differently. A lot of people will do the die up when they're cutting. I like to do it the other way because I like to position and place my dies. So just to recap on all of this, A plate, metal shim, C plate, my card face up, the waxed quick release paper face up, my die face down. And now I'm taking my B plate, I'm going to pop that on top, and I'm going to whiz that through. Now, I know that with my other machines, with this particular die, I would have to do quite a few passes. So let's see how this little machine, the Go Cut and Emboss, has tackled this really intricate frame. Before I do, can you see how I've staggered my dies? I always stagger my dies. I find they type of roll through the actual machine better than having them all neatly stacked and blocked up. So, what I always tell my ladies on my classes, before you take your, see that's cut off beautifully already, before you take your die out of machine, flip it over and see that it's all cut. One pass, I can see that has cut beautifully on such an intricate die. I'm very pleased. Now I'm going to be using this little guy here. This is your little brush and your foam pad, and I'm going to be popping that down. I know that I could take this out of this die super quick and easy, no problems, but it's got so many tiny little bits of paper. I just want to make sure I can get rid of those out of my die properly, so I'm going to brush. So what the brushing is doing is taking out the little bits of paper from my die. Now, wow, just simply lifted that up. Here is my beautiful frame. Now look at that. Can you see how much paper has been left in? There's probably, oh, I can spot maybe 3 little bits that just need poking out. Normally, I'd be poking out for about 10 minutes. So I'm very, very happy with how this has come out. Alright, now you can, of course, this is the grease paper, the ejection sheet, you can actually use that, and I do quite often. You know, you can give it a bit of a frame like that on the page if you want to. So do keep these. I pop that in my die offcuts box for later. And with this little die, I have actually got some bonus pieces. So there's my die cleaned. Nothing, well, just one little piece there for me to pop out. That's ready to go for another time. I've now got this gorgeous, very intricate little frame from that set. That's going to go for next time. And I've also got this beautiful little shape. That's for next time. So for that one die, I've got so many beautiful cuts for next time. So with this, I simply pop it off, give it a couple of bangs on my bin, and it's clean, virtually ready for next time. Okay, so that is intricate cutting. Remember, with your intricate die cut, you want to be using that metal shim. So what I'm going to do with this is I'm going to take my card, I spotted another teeny little one, and I'm going to stick this down just to give this another nice feel. I'm going to rub these pencil lines out a bit later. Okay, so just going to stick this down. Now you can see how this is quite lacy. What I'd like to stick this down with is this one, which is called the My Stick. It's a removable and it's a dotty one. So what that means is that it's just going to put adhesive on the paper. Nowhere else, just on the paper. I can erase with my finger any leftover glue, but can you see, you can't see any glue coming through those holes. That's why I like to use this dotted one on lacy dies. So just sticking that fairly quickly down. You can always pick out if there's a couple of other little ones that you spot afterwards, and I always do. You can pick those out later. So far we've gone through basic cutting and intricate cutting. Now I want to move on to embossing with this card. Now, what I always recommend in my shop, if people have the budget, is when you buy your machine, to buy yourself a couple of extra B plates. So these are the cutting plates for my machine, and I see how nice and clean and unmarked these are. I just use these for embossing, because if I am going to be embossing with this cutting plate, the one that goes on top, which gets marked, these marks will come through on my embossing, and it doesn't give me that nice clean look that I'm after. So for this setup here for embossing, again, as always, we need that base platform, the A plate. The A plate always goes down. Next, I'm going to need one of my nice clean B plates. Then I'm going to take some card, and I've cut a piece of card from that same paper, but I'm going to be using the back, and I've cut this to 4 3/4 inches square. And I've got this lovely embossing folder. I thought the waves would go with the sea theme of the paper, and this is called Rainbow Waves by Couture Creations. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to pop that in. But just on your embossing dies, you need to kind of feel what they're like. Now I want to have the waves, so if I feel this side, it's quite bumpy with the waves. So I tend to put an embossing folder through, and then I tend to mark. So you can see here I've got up, that's the way that I want to have this up. So I want those waves raised. So this is going to be just popped in. This is a smaller folder, so I'm not going to do the 2 passes matching up the edges on the side. I'm going to actually cut the paper down in a minute, just to save time on the video. But you could move this along and do another one. And you know, don't forget, your embossing folders can go this way. They can also fit in this way. So sometimes people think they can't do a basic card, but of course you can by putting it in this way. So the folder goes down and the B goes on top, and I'm going to whisk that through. See how beautifully that's embossed? Very happy with that. And the embossing is clean because I've used 2 clean plates. Alright, I'm just going to very quickly just chop this down so it fits the... So I'm popping that, so I'm going to cut this down to it's a 4x4. I like it to be square because it's going onto a square card, and it really doesn't matter that it's going to be slightly smaller. So I've cut this to a 4x4. Now with this little piece here, I'm going to pop this inside my window. Alright, so going back to a heavy duty one here. I want the waves to go up, so I'm just going to pop that inside on the centre. So that's our card, looking beautiful. Lovely texture, beautiful lacy frame, lovely window for extra interest. Okay, now the next thing I want to do to finish this card off is I want to take one, actually let's put, you probably won't see a lot of this little guy, but I'm going to pop him in. I'll rub those pencil lines off a bit later. So I'm just going to pop him down in here. And then I have got some of the beautiful Capricorns from Couture Creations, and these are part of the same collection. And I think I might use that beautiful, yeah, I'm going to use the beautiful windmill there. But I want to make it a little bit more special. And one of the things that I love to do with my die cutting machine, and this little machine does this beautifully, is to make a little frame for my Cobacon. So to do this frame, I'm just simply going to take my A plate, and I'm going to take 2 B plates. So this is my cutting B plate, which is a bit marked. So that's going to go down. And I've got a bottle top here. These bottle tops you can buy big bags from Woolies, only a few dollars. So I'm going to pop that down on my machine. So the edges, the sharp bits are going down. And then I'm going to take one of my cleaner B plates. It doesn't have to be a clean one, but I only happen to have a clean one here. And I'm just going to roll that through my machine. And what this has done, it has created a really beautiful frame. So I am going to take my beautiful Cobacon. I can never say that word, I'm probably not saying it right. And I've got that now inside here. So my beautiful element, rather than that word I can't say, is stuck down on that lovely little bottle top frame, which costs cents, hardly anything. So that's something I like to do quite a bit with my machine. And now we're going to just stick that onto our card. So my central element is down, and the next thing I want to do is very quickly show you a really easy technique for applying your twine. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just cut a couple of little notches, little slits. I've got 2 on the top, and I'm going to put 2 here on the bottom. You can have them as far apart as you want. And then what I've got is I have some twine, and I've actually folded it so there's 2 pieces. And what I like to do is to take the twine, and I'm going to pop the end roughly where I want to finish it. And then I'm going to take the 2 elements here, and I'm going to pop each one through those little notches. Can you see? What those notches do is they hold it in place. They tell it to behave. I'm going to pop it around the back. I'm going to do exactly the same here on the bottom, which is a little bit harder to do it holding it up in front of the camera. I might pop it down. So 1 and 2, super easy when it's down. Okay, so you can see there the 2 little notches gone through, and then I simply take this up, and because it's kind of nautical, I'm just going to tie this in a basic knot. Okay, and then I'll just chop that end off a little bit. Okay, so now I've got a nice little bit of kind of nautical, rusticy twine, and also another textural element on my card. So really that's all I want to do for my card. So there's a few good techniques. I actually use the Helmer 450 to glue my element down, because it is, you know, a bit heavy, or it's chunky. You need something strong. So that's my my card. Now, because I'm talking to you about die cutting, there's another thing I want to run through. So we've done basic die cutting, we've done intricate die cutting, we've done embossing. We haven't done the 2-step process, which is when you cut and emboss at the same time. So I'm going to demonstrate this using this Ultimate Crafts die, and this is the beautiful Eucalyptus Blossom. Now when you buy a die, just get to know it. So this lovely die has got all of these holes, and that tells me that this one can be embossed to give it extra dimension as well as cut. So to do this, what we need to do is we need to grab our machine, and we need to first of all cut in the way that we would always cut. So I have got my A plate, C for cut plate. Now I don't need my metal shim on this one because it's not intricate, it's big and bold, it's simple cutting, so I don't need my metal. Then I'm going to take my paper, then I've got the die going down, and then I've got my B plate on top, and I'm going to whiz that through. Looks like the sun's come across. It's not a great day for filming today, and I must apologise. I've been trying to do this for the last few days, but the weather has been just atrocious. So, as always, we check the back. I can see how beautifully that's cut. Now I don't want to remove that die. I'm now going to place that die back on my C plate. So I've got my A, I have my C, and the die is down there. And what I'm now going to do is to take my silicone mat. Now this doesn't come with this machine, it doesn't come with any machine as far as I know, but you can buy these, they're about $10 or so, not expensive. So you take your silicone mat, and this really, you need a silicone mat for this technique, and you're going to sit that on top of your die and papers. We're going to put back our B plate. Now again, you know, just stagger it as I always stagger. And it's going to be a bit harder to roll through because we've got this Teflon mat on top. But what's going to happen, that Teflon mat is going to push through that paper into the holes to create an embossed look. Okay. Now with any die, what you actually have is you have these tiny, tiny little holes, and all you need to do is just to prick out gently from those holes, and a good die will be having those holes strategically placed, so when you flip it over, all you have to do is get the end and then just lift it out. Now, can you see the beautiful embossed features on this die? That's what we've got from the two-step cut and emboss process that you do on dies that sometimes they're labelled, sometimes they're not. So what you're looking for is kind of holes that paper can be pushed through to give you an embossed look. Okay. Useful tips and tricks with your die cutting. I absolutely love die cutting. I love the Go Cut and Emboss, and I reckon I use it every day. I think die cutting and embossing really accentuates the quality and look of your cards. I want to thank you for taking time out to listen to me again. I hope you've enjoyed it, and don't forget, subscribe to my channel if you want more great card ideas. My name's Collette. Until next time, bye for now.